Question of the hour is who's hungover.
Can Kiana engage the filter between her brain and her mouth? That is the question.
I believe in you. You want me to take it, Andy, or are you going to run with it?
I will run with it. So,
All right.
yeah. So if people come in, just feel free to let people in as we go. So, good morning, everybody. Awesome to see you. Thank you for being a part of this. This is the first like panel that we've had. So this is the first time I'm moderating a panel. So like some buyer offers out there, it may be a dumpster fire or it may be a rousing success. And if it's a dumpster fire, it will not have anything to do with the three ladies who are our panelists. The first person, speaking of dumpster fire,
Hey,
she said the worst one I've ever been involved in was 40 offers, her offer in 39. She said we weren't the highest, we weren't cash, but we went home with the prize because the listing agent believed we would close. With over 150 closed buyer transactions, ladies and gentlemen, Kiana Didrikson.
Woo!
Let's see, number two. Let's see, 1.5 offers is the average that she said she writes for clients, meaning she's got some pretty darn good success. Has only written more than 3 offers for a client one time. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jamie Bracken.
I've never written more than 3 offers. 3 is the max.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's 3 in a week. So, and also Sandy Knoll, she does business in King County, also lives in Pierce County down in Gig Harbor, meaning there's multiple markets that she's certainly competing in, and will be competing in. So what happens in King County may not necessarily happen down in Pierce County. So comes from a great geography and over 115 closed buyer deals. That's a lot of buyer deals. Sandy Knoll. Thank you for being a part of it all this morning. So let's see. What I'm going to do, I'm going to certainly throw out some questions. And when it's all over, y'all might have some scenarios or questions, some multiple offer things you've gone through that you might want to run by them. So when it's all over, definitely unmute yourself and we'll go forward on that. But number one, how do you price homes to get multiple offers? And I'll go like in the order that I see them and then flip-flop it. Kiana, how do you price homes to get multiple offers?
Ultimately pricing's up to the seller, but we give them the comps, we go through it, and then we ask them what kind of an experience they want to have. If they want to price it on the high end, cool, but don't expect an explosion. We suggest that they price it in the mid-range, or depending on many factors, the condition of the house, all that, but price is up to them. But then we go in and we really try to do all the work ahead of time. Like almost every single one of my listings is pre-inspected, professionally cleaned. We try to kick people out and stage their house because it's just going to look better. We really try to do all the work up front to set it up for buyers to feel comfortable knocking the ball out of the park. And then we, talk to our sellers about, list price, where you list and where you land are sometimes vastly, vastly different. And they don't get to choose what their house ultimately sells for. They don't get to choose the value. Neither do we. If I got to dictate that, everything would be worth many, many millions of dollars, believe me. All they get to pick at the end of the day is strategically where they want to position themselves with regards to the competition. And as soon as we say that, they go, oh, well, I better get my act together and price it appropriately. And they tend to. Like, it's rare that I hit market with a house that I think is overpriced or, so we educate. At the end of the day, we just educate and counsel, and then it's up to them. And, we don't hire people that we think are nuts. So that helps too. Or we don't allow ourselves to be hired by people we think are nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
Jamie, same question. How do you price homes to try and get multiple offers?
Everything Kiana said, but I think there are certain houses that are multiple offer houses, right? Location, price, condition. So you can then have that conversation like this multiple offer house if we want it to be. But that means we have to do these things to get ready, and you might need to be gone because there will be a lot of people. I had one house, we had 72 broker tours in 3 days. I just allowed overlapping, and we also had 3 pre-inspections on that house during that time. It was insane. And there were other houses in the similar, you know, in the neighborhood and that were in the similar price point, but I just knew this house had just the elements of goodness and cuteness and layout that was gonna make it a multiple offer house. So it was like, we can price it to be a multiple offer house just under market. We can price it at market, which is in this range, or you could try for 100 grand higher, but I think you're gonna get it anyway if you strategically price it for multiple offers. And they did. There was $100,000 escalation. It was their sort of hope for dream price. And it's like, well, we can't come out of that price. We have to work our way up to that price. So I would say just, you know, knowing if a house is a multiple offer house is also kind of part of the strategy.
Cool. Sandy, same question. Things you might do to price a home to potentially get multiple offers.
So same thing that they said. I usually will price, I don't know, 5% lower than recent sales. I'm not a huge, oh, you have to stage it to get it sold, especially when we have a hot market. I mean, we've seen some really bad homes that escalate $100,000 over list. So I have the discussion with my sellers and ultimately leave it up to them. And I asked, and I actually have one right now, we're going to go live next week in Kent, and they put $100,000 worth of upgrades in their home in the last year and a half. I'm just not sure that buyers looking in Kent are going to think the house is worth that price with the extras added. So we had that conversation yesterday that, okay, everything is listing under 800, but it's closing over 800. So I think we really need to list just under 800, and it's going to go up and cover those extras that you've put into it. Or I said, if you don't care how long you're on the market and you don't need a quick sale, we can list it with and highlight all of those extras and then just see what happens. And, you know, it could go quick and it might sit for a long time because we're in a really weird market right now. You never know which way to go. But always under what recent sales if you want to generate multiple offers.
So, Sandy, when you think you usually know when you're going to be getting multiple offers. Ton of traffic is coming in, a whole lot of phone calls. Are there some things you say to your sellers in advance
about their house? Well, I had one in Shoreline. We comps only had it at 750, so that's where we put it. We closed at 920. And that was not a let's see how high we can go. That was simply the market wouldn't, if I would have listed it at 920, it was not going to appraise. And the market didn't support that. So we had to have that conversation about, you know, if we listed here, we're more likely to get the multiple offers than if we go high. So, you know, if I think, and we did, we had same thing, 2 open houses. I think we had over 100 showings total. Thankfully, they had already bought and moved on. So the house was vacant and we did stage that one. That was their decision. But it's just, I don't really ever set my sellers up for this is going to be multiple offers. I set them up for this is what the market looks like. This is what the comps say. And let's just see what happens.
Right. Cool. Jamie, you mentioned that you tell your sellers be gone. You know, what else do you do? Like when you know, especially early on, this is going to be a really hot property. What else do you tell them?
Well, I tell them, you know, the photographs and the staging, like if they don't have photographable furniture. For instance, the one that had all of those showings, they had massive antique, like they were into antiques. They had tons of religious artifacts, massive antiques, huge furniture everywhere, except in their kitchen area, which they had redone, which was sweet. So I'm like, we need to partially stage this house and we need to get you guys ready to move. We need to move these antiques. If you can't move them into storage, let's hire some movers to move them neatly into the garage and let's Let's not have people come in and all they're looking at is your antiques and commenting on that. They need to see the layout of the house. So I always stress, like, these are the things I think we need to do. They're cost effective. They're gonna make the pictures look great, that are gonna bring people in. I do, you know, like all of us, we have conversations of what could happen, whether if it's before or during. You know, you're getting a lot of showings, a lot of activity, you know, you're gonna get multiples. But those brokers who are calling, asking questions, asking for documents and things are probably more likely. And so you want to make sure that you're always, whether you're the buyer agent or the seller agent, establishing good rapport with the brokers and not being in a snit all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to, you know, you have to be collegial with everyone. And for me, I had to learn that because I'm in a snit all the time. That's my temperament. So I had to learn to be nice. But I think it's just preparing them, because it is a stressful time. You know, if we're talking about how to list a house for multiples, doesn't matter what happens, they're stressed out. Very few people are really experienced at selling their house, and everybody thinks their house is better than it is, but they worry that it's worse than it is. So, you know, there's a lot of what might happen, what could happen, and hopefully what should happen conversations I have with them.
So sometimes staging is very important. The one house, like you're saying, antiques all over the place. One house had plates. They like decorative plates, and they covered every square inch of the walls. And so so sometimes staging is getting rid of a lot of stuff. And then they're
Yeah.
like, hey, what'd you think about the house? I'm like, I didn't see the house. I saw plates. That's, you know, that's all we saw was plates. So getting rid of things so people can see the house. So same thing. Yeah, Kiana, is there anything like you add to your sellers, like, hey, we're going to be getting multiple offers, so get out of the house, you know, be gone? What, you know, what is the thing you
Yeah,
tell them?
I just tell them you're not allowed to be there. You know, you're allowed to have pets, but I'm not allowed to know they're there. Or really, I mean, you can frankly do whatever you want, but it's going to cost you. You know, I could not possibly board my cat for the weekend. All right, cool. Is that worth 10 grand to you? How about 20? How about 30? Because if somebody walks into that house and they smell your litter box, they're gone. And that's a problem. So, I mean, we're just really, frankly, blunt with people. It's like, listen, none of this is up to me, but I can tell you after all these years of experience how this is going to go and what's going to help you and what's going to hurt you. And we do have conversations. I mean, the vast majority of our listings sell the first weekend in multiples. So we prep people. It's like, look, I can't guarantee you, but let's have a conversation about, you know, we usually set a review date, you know, in most markets, or, you know, anytime it's a reasonable market to do so. And we talk to people up front. It's like, listen, you know, somebody might come at you with an early offer and try to get you to take it. You need to think about that in advance, because it's not a fun thing to have to decide in the moment. You know, statistically, people that hold for offer review day make more. It's just a fact. But, you know, not every single time. And, you know, sometimes we talk through stuff like, how do you want me to respond on your behalf when I get these calls? Like, most of the time, I'm just going to do what they usually say, well, just do whatever you think is best. So it's like, I'm going to, but, you know, you are going to, at some point, you get to make a decision and you have to make a call. And, you know, we talk through those things up front, just because I find that it goes much smoother with sellers when they have been told, here are the things that might happen. If A, then B and C are, you know, could be the next. Like, we just lay out kind of the entire thing for them. So in their brain, they know where we are and where we're going. And that way, when something comes up, we've already talked about it. So we really just try to, I mean, educate as much as we possibly can up front, because it goes such a long way.
Of the three of you, of the panelists, and I know what the answer of this is going to be, but raise your hand if you're honest and blunt with your clients.
But I'm nice.
People like it. You know, the minute I stop sugarcoating stuff, people respond they want to be told. They want you to tell them what to do and, you know, what needs to happen. They don't want to be the one leading the show. If they did, they'd go to open houses. They want
Sell
you.
it themselves.
Yeah, they want you to be blunt. And the blunter you get, the easier your life gets. That is a fact.
Right.
Agreed.
See, so we've kind of been talking about sellers and listings, like, hey, you know, what are some things we can do to get a price for multiple offers? Sellers, here's some things you can do to be prepared and to help facilitate, you know, the best chance to get multiple offers. Now I'd like to switch it to buyers. So you know it's going to be multiple offers when you walk into certain listings, and you call the listing broker. They're like, yeah, I've got my phone's ringing off the hook, and I already have two offers. Already have two offers in hand. So then you need to let your buyers know that. Jamie, what do you first tell your buyers?
Well, I tell them before we go to the house, and sometimes I've already previewed it, but I'll just tell them, this is gonna be a multiple offer house. And they'll be like, well, what do you think the, range will be? And I tell them, I look at the condensed report, and I think this is important for everybody to remember that exists on the MLS. You look at the condensed report to see what recent houses have escalated for. So I will tell them, look, this could escalate 10%. I mean, 2 years ago, it was 42% in Bellevue. It was hideous, on average. It was just crazy. So I will show them the statistics of, what we're up against, what we could be up against with this house. And when we're touring the house, I will tell them why. Like, these are the reasons why. Now, usually you don't have to convince somebody to buy a house. Sometimes you have to convince them not to buy it. And that's kind of the approach I take with buyers. Like, hey, I'm never going to talk you into a house. I won't have to, right?
Mhm.
You'll see it, you'll know it, and you'll love it. But I might talk you out of a house for various reasons, or at least try. So I will use the condensed report. And the very first time I used it was on my second offer for a client. Everything was escalating in their price range. The first offer, there were 42 offers. We came in second, and we both were similar, but I had a great story. That was back in the day of the buyer letter. And, it was for a couple of girls that were playing on the University of Washington basketball team. We branded that thing. We're going to name it the Dog House. Kelsey Plum's going to live. Like, we had all this stuff. And we lost out to a woman whose husband had just been hit and killed in a crosswalk. We was like, oh, it's like, okay, our story wasn't quite that urgent. But that being said, the second time I went through, I thought, okay, we're seeing so much escalation. And instead of dropping down in price point, I went up in price point to see what those were escalating. Because the price point I was in was escalating like 22%. And I went up a price point, and they were escalating 6 to 8, and it kept us still within our escalation. And that's how we won that. There were only 2 offers on that. And the guy that we beat out was higher, and he was cash, but the listing agent hated him so much. He was so annoying and so contentious with her. And we had formed a relationship with her, just talking and not being annoying, that they chose us. So there you go.
Sandy, what do you tell your buyers? Say it's a multiple offer situation.
I work with a lot of first-time home buyers, and a lot of them are actually adverse to the whole multiple offer situation. So when I tell them, this is priced here, this is what has been selling, it's clear that these homes are escalating 50, 100. I mean, King County wasn't uncommon to escalate $200,000 over list. And a lot of times we wouldn't go see it. And my strategy for that, which it still was difficult, was let's look at things that have been on the market for a little bit, because then we have a less likely chance of multiple offers, although there are lots of us who are using that strategy. So you have to figure out what the sweet spot is and get in just before it so that you're on your own. But, just tell them this is going to go up. And in a lot of cases, they couldn't compete because they just didn't have the extra cash.
Right.
They have for the additional down payments that it was going to escalate $100,000. They were already maxed out at putting their down payment. And sometimes we restructured that with the lender. If they were able, we'd put down 5 or 10% to have extra cash to use for additional down if needed. But, I just tell them that and just stay positive. I mean, that's probably the best advice I could give any of them, was just stick with it, stay positive. If this one didn't work, it always means that there's something better out there. That's always been my philosophy. If it's meant to be, it will be. And if it doesn't work out, just hang in there. And I would say 90% of the time they found something that they liked even better than all the homes that we lost out on.
It's the anti-clutch. You always get the house you're supposed to get. I think you told me that the first week I was a broker, because it was multiple offers, like, don't worry about it. You always get the house you're supposed to get. I tell that to every client.
I mean,
Still.
it sounds odd, but like Sandy's saying, it just like, yeah, echoing the same thing. The house you're supposed to be in is the house you're going to be in.
Mhm.
And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, of course, but you're going to see it play out that way. So thank you for bringing that is an Andyism. So Kiana, you got the multiple offers that are rolling in. What are some of the things that you're specifically looking for that you like to see in the offers?
Yeah. As the listing agent, you mean? The most dollars and the fewest contingencies, and an agent that I don't think is a jackass.
Amen.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're the buyer's agent, you really win in multiples before you ever put pen to paper. That calling the listing agent and having, sometimes I'll have 3-4 conversations with somebody before I ever put pen to paper, because I know it's going to be a dumpster fire. And I know that at the end of the day, the client's going to look at them and say, which one of these top 2 or 3 should I sign? And they're going to say, this one, because I trust her. We've had 6 conversations. I've talked to the lender. Like I've pulled the numbers. I know this person knows what they're doing. I know they're going to close, So it really comes down to just establishing that rapport and then having a nice, clean offer. Understand, get rid of anything you don't need. Educate your clients up front. I mean, we like to sit them down. I don't wait until they found a house that they're in love with, because by the time you're having that conversation, they're not listening to me. Once they're in a house they love, we sit them down ahead of time and say, listen, this is the market we're in. Here is what we're seeing. If it's a robust seller's market and it's multiples on everything, which is just kind of standard around here, except for recently. And even now, I mean, we just say, listen, there's some things that you're going to have to do that are unsavory. They are legally ill-advised. I can't tell you should do them, but I can tell you that if you don't, you're not getting this house or any other one. And if you're averse to those things, then you need to wait until a house has been on the market for a while. If you are unwilling to waive inspection and unwilling to pay more than list price, you probably don't advise, you're just not a buyer right now. We're just really honest and blunt with people. And if that freaks them out, then that is not a buyer I want to spend any time on, or if it's like, okay, well, I'll call you when it's time. And when rates went up and, the multiples went down, we did call those people and say, all right, now it's time. I don't like the rates. I don't care. Deal with the rate for 18 months and then refinance. What do you like less, the high rates or the extra $100,000 that I'm going to have to spend in multiple offers? You pick, so it's really just different sides of the same coin whether you're representing buyers or sellers. I mean, everybody's looking for the same thing. Like when somebody called me, what does the seller want? Well, I don't know. What do you think the seller wants? They want dollars and they want something that's going to close and they want no contingencies. It's always the same answer, so, education. Tell them up front, tell them before they fall in love with something, be brutally honest. And I mean, brutally honest. Have real estate versus imaginary estate conversations.
Right. Sandy, what do you tell buyers, like, especially with things like an inspection? It's like, well, should we, is multiple offers, should we, should we get this inspected? Do we have time to get this inspected? What would you tell a buyer about that?
Yeah, if we have time, I will advise a pre-inspection. I will always tell them that it is not a good idea to waive inspection, but like they both said, in this market, it's what people are doing. And I actually cringe when I think about all the homes people bought in 2021 without inspections, what they're discovering now 2 or 3 years later. But, we have to have that conversation with them. Like and I've had buyers who are like, I'm not waiving inspection, and we go in with whatever they'll offer and we always lose to somebody who's waived inspection, and they understand that, but that is their comfort level. And I think that's the most important thing when working with our clients, is to understand what their comfort level is. And if they're not comfortable with waiving inspection, or they're not comfortable with escalating 100 or 200,000 over list, then we have to look at those older things or wait till later in the market. And if we have time, we'll try and do a pre-inspection if they really love it. Because obviously you can't spend $700 every time you think that that's a house. But there was a time in, I think it was 2021, end of 2020 and 2021, where I told my buyers to budget for about $2,500 worth of pre-inspections, because it was taking 9 to 10 offers a buyer to get something accepted. And in most cases, we were beat out because they didn't have enough money for additional down. They could go up, but they didn't have an extra 200 grand. And even restructuring with the lender didn't always work. So one way to help try to make them more appealing for the seller was to do the pre-inspection. And so I just said, you know what, you're just gonna have to, in all of your costs to buy, you need to budget in about $2,500 for pre-inspections, and understand that that is money that you could be spending and you're not gonna get the house, but an inspection is like the best insurance you can get when purchasing a home, because if you waive it and you find out later all of these things, then that's on you, because you decided to waive the inspection and there's nothing you can do at that point.
I've received about 10 emails just to like give you all like a little insight into what happens with me. About 10 emails from buyers who've purchased, moved in, done the inspection, and every single time the amount is $30,000 worth of problems.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I don't know why, but it's $30,000 worth of problems. Now, you know, a lot of times they'll say, yeah, Andy, and before you ask, yes, we did the supplemental addendum, we did page 1 of the supplemental addendum, and check the box that they're waiving inspections. And when that happens, I'm chill. I'm feeling pretty chill about it, because those are two great things to use, because yeah, buyers get everything inspected. It's multiple offers, and so like some of that counsel of it's multiple offers. So save a question for later, but I want to come to you, Kiana. You're the listing broker, and I come to you, and with my offer, and I'm like, hey, we have an inspection in there. We have an inspection contingency, but we're giving you, let's say the home is priced at $850. We're giving you $15,000 over the highest bidder, up to, let's say it's a phenomenal escalation. We're giving you $15,000 over the highest bidder. You may not like the inspection contingency, and I get that, but you got 15 grand in house money. What are your thoughts on that?
Usually that 15 grand's not worth anything, because they can renegotiate it. And even if they say pass or fail, or we're not, nothing worth, like, it's just to make them feel better. It's like, I don't care. And at the end of the day, first of all, it's not up to me. It's not up to the seller, or it is up to the seller. But when I sit in front of the seller and they're like, usually it's a case where it's like, we already got way more than we expected anyway. And I tell them, like, look, that 15 grand is cute, but that's all it is. Like, and maybe they aren't going to find anything, and maybe they are really and truly not trying to screw with you. That's probably not their motivation, but the reality is they can walk away for no reason at all. And then you are back to square one, and I am going to have to tell everyone else why we are back on the market. So, and we, this, we pre-inspect 99% of our listings, because most buyers don't want to screw with you. They just want something to show them that the house isn't full. They want to know that the inspector went there and opened their eyes while they were there. That's it. So I almost never get those phone calls, because it's like, look, there's multiples, and, I will never, ever, ever tell you cannot have an inspection. I will tell you that you're not competitive. So most of the time that 15 grand they're going to take somebody who waives inspection 99 times out of 100, because the seller understands that the 15 grand's useless if you walk away.
Right. Cool. Jamie, when you're writing up the multiple offer for the buyer, what are some things that you do to try and set your offer apart?
Well, I will I try to pre-establish a relationship with the listing broker or brokers. Just talk to them, and I always will express like, hey, this is a great fit for my guys, and they really like it actually. So it's likely we're gonna write. So I'll always like throw that out there if it's true. And then I'll ask them, hey, if you get a scenario where you get an offer, in hand, you know, are you able to let me know? Can you just, you know, pop me a text or whatever? And they always will. And when they do, and this leads to my conversation with my buyer, I won't ask them like, what does seller want? Because I think we know what sellers want. I will say, of the offers you've received, is there any weakness that we could come in, area of weakness that we come in stronger? I've never had somebody not tell me, hey, you know what, they're strong on price, but these offers are not clean. We have 2 offers, which means, okay, they've got inspection contingencies, even though these people pre-inspected, you know, they've got everything, right? So then I'll have the conversation with my buyers. Look, here's, you know, if you love this house, here, you know, there's risks and there's rewards. So we have to decide what risks we're willing to take. And so, you know, that means, you know, price wise, right? These guys are all strong on price. They're at least asked, maybe they have small escalations in this area. What do you think about coming in at around this price? And they're like, yes. Okay, now we have to talk about the things we can make it look like we're waiving as many things as possible, even if we aren't. We've seen for instance, when they do, they have the preliminary commitment listed. You know, I will have already gone through it with buyers. It's like, you know what, we could conceivably waive title if you want to do that. There's nothing, it's a marketable house, they have to provide marketable title. Okay, that's semi-pain free. We've read the Form 17. You could conceivably waive that so that we can say we've waived title, we've waived Form 17. Now let's talk about the inspection, and this is the risk. We're not gonna have time to pre-inspect at this point. This is day 1 of this offer. You've been in it, I've been in it twice. You know, let's talk about it. We've seen their pre-inspection. We know the trouble areas. The price, you know, who knows if there are, you know, can't see in the walls, so we don't know. Is this something that you want to waive inspection? Because they're telling us these offers are not clean. And what a listing agent doesn't want to have happen, they don't want to go back on market. They do not want to go backwards in price on inspection. They do not want to go backwards on appraisal. So I always talk about each of those areas. How do we strengthen our offer there? How do we show them? You know, with appraisal, it's like, hey, these guys are highly qualified. I will always talk up my buyer. They're highly qualified, awesome lender. I'm going to have him call you. He'll tell you, we will close. I always tell them, we will close, we will close, we will close. They love the house. They're super committed. You know, this is pretty quick sale. We would have pre-inspected. We didn't have time. So, but we will close. And with this lender, I've never not closed. So, you know, there's things you can say that you know you want as a listing agent. They want clean offers. They don't want to go back on market. They don't want to deal with somebody who's dumb. They don't want a lender who's hard to reach. My last deal that I did, cute young couple, friends, kids. I'm like, are you pre-approved? Yes, send me your pre-approval. It was with Rocket Mortgage. And then that same day we saw the house, I go, you have to call this lender or this lender. You can talk to them both. We cannot use Rocket Mortgage. You know, if you're on Capitol Hill, you can't use Bank of America. Doesn't matter. Those brokers up there hate B of A, you know, and everybody would hate Rocket Mortgage, I'm guessing. No offense, Rocket Mortgage. So they got approved with one of the lenders, and she's amazing. And when I said, hey, our offer is in, that was the night I went to the Kraken game. Our offer is in. Call me and let me know what happens, you know. And lender's going to call you. Agent called, said, you know what? Loved your offer. It was super clean. Your lender's fantastic. We feel confident, so sellers going with you. And I think it's that combination of all those things, right? You want the cleanest offer. You want the best team. You need to be communicative. Lender needs to be communicative. And you need to convince them that you're going to close and that your buyers love this house. I cannot stand as a listing agent when somebody comes in and acts like their buyers don't love the house. You know, why you're writing an offer. I want to know they're committed. I want to know they love it. I want to know they're going to close. So based on what the broker tells me, that's the conversation that I have with my buyers.
And questions are certainly a good thing, like a great thing to do. Do you, sometimes you never know what you're going to find out. Sandy, have you asked questions of listing brokers and kind of been amazed at what they would share about multiple offers going on?
I don't know that I was surprised, because even as a listing broker myself, when I had that one in, well, it was Lake Cityway, not Shoreline. They moved to Shoreline, but I was completely transparent with everybody.
Mhm.
And I told them what we had in hand. I told them that we were holding to the review date. I told them who was doing inspections. When brokers would call me and ask me, this is what my buyers can do, I was upfront with them and said, you're welcome to send it in, but I will tell you, you are not competitive, you're not close, it's 50,000 off, or, something like that. So I'm not surprised. What I am surprised at is the brokers who hold their cards so hard close to their vest that they won't tell you anything.
Right.
It's like, let's just save time. I want to call a broker and say, this is what my client can do. Are we competitive? Because
Right.
if we're not competitive, I want to spare them the heartache of waiting all night, wondering if their offer is going to be accepted, knowing that it's probably not because of this, this, and this. So those brokers who won't share anything, or they always kind of surprise me.
The listing brokers that won't share anything.
Yeah.
This will be the fun part, and everyone's chomping at the bit at this question, because look, as was brought up, as what was brought up early on, you can set yourself apart from the jump, like absolutely from the get-go. Do not be annoying. So what are some things that as a listing broker, I'll start with you, Kiana, that you've seen that buyer brokers have done that just annoy the bejesus out of you, and really kind of put them in a bad spot from the get-go?
God, just don't be stupid in public, read the damn agent remarks. I put them in there for a reason. There's a lot of information in there that is drastically helpful for you. Don't ask stupid questions, like, why is the seller moving? I don't know, because I didn't ask them, and it's none of your business either. Has anyone died in the house? I don't know. I didn't ask him that either, because it's not disclosable. Like, understand the rules of engagement and educate your buyers accordingly. If they don't want a house that anyone's ever died in, well, you better go buy new construction, because you just don't know. And if I ask that question, it's going to make me look stupid, which makes you look stupid, which means we're all screwed. So do you really want me asking that question to every listing agent? But mostly just be competent. I mean, one of the first things as the listing agent I do once I have, well, first of all, everybody's my best friend until I get more than one offer in my hand, and then things get real serious real quick. And I agree with Sandy that the target is much easier to hit if you know what it is. And I don't want 15 offers, because that's a pain in the neck. I'd rather have 5 really good ones. So if I can save other people the time and energy, then that's great. Which, by the way, I mean, agents love. I love it when I got a buyer that I know isn't competitive, and the agent just tells me, and I can tell them, like, look, you are already screwed. There's nothing I can do to make you okay on this house. So, I have no problem being super transparent, but really, people just need to understand how things work, write nice, clean offers. Don't ask questions that are just like, if you think the question might be stupid, it probably is. If you can look into it and answer it yourself, do that. There are plenty of really good questions. Don't waste your FaceTime with the listing agent whose phone, you can't even get off the last call before the phone rings again by asking something stupid. Take that time to set yourself apart in a good way. Because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, real estate is a team sport. And when I'm the listing agent and I'm picking who's going to be on my team for the next 30 days, I want it to be somebody that I think is competent and somebody who I believe can help overcome obstacles if needed. I always pull everybody's stats, unless it's somebody I know and I know they've been around forever. I will hop on the MLS and see how many houses they've sold, because if the answer is 0, that might be a problem down the road, because I can't jump in their body and do their job for them. But, generally speaking, know enough to know which questions are relevant and which aren't.
Might be a great question when it's one-on-one, not a great question when it's multiple offers. So
yeah, and that's a really different thing, right? And so that's the first thing, is like, figure out the lay of the land out of the gate. Because if there's nobody else around and you're the only show in town, you got a lot more leeway, than you do if there's 15, 20, 30, 40 offers on the table. Like, you better have your act together if it's multiples. If it's not, you can little bit more leeway to ask things that, would never ever come out of my mouth in multiples.
Right. Jamie, what annoys you?
Oh my gosh. One thing that really annoys me is if I say offer review date, we're holding to the review date, get your offer in by 11 a.m. I need that time. If it's going to be multiples, call the lenders to spreadsheet the offers, to get everything organized, to meet with my sellers. And so when people come in late, or they think they're being super stealth and suddenly it shows up at 3 or 4 and I don't have time to talk to the lender, that's annoying. And that makes me really mad. The other thing is, I will always ask seller, hey, looks like we're going to get multiple offers. I can tell them, hey, this is where we're at. This is the highest price. We've got some with good terms. Do you want me to tell them those things? Because I will tell them, and I like to tell them those things. I like people to know like where they stand and how they can improve. One time we did a thing where it's like, I'm calling you all back. I'm texting you all back at 4. And I'm going to tell you what place you're in. And then you have until 5 to change your offer. And that's it. Don't call me. Don't do anything. Text me, say, I'm sending a new offer. And there were 2 people that just, kept calling, kept texting, kept calling. And I was like, you are going to the bottom of the pile because you're annoying, so stop being annoying. I gave you the terms. This is what we're doing. So, I kind of set that annoyance up on myself by allowing people sort of a second chance at their offer. But honestly, it got us another 80 grand. So
It works.
I'm already escalated.
It works.
And so I'll always ask, is there a mechanism by which, if we're in the top 3, we can revise our offer? How will I know? Will you text me? Yes, I would be happy to text you. Okay. And when will you need it by? We'll need it by this time. Awesome. I want to let you know that I will not be calling you. I'm not going to be annoying. I just tell them I'm not going to be annoying, but looks like we're going to revise our offer. So thanks for that, Chance. And so those things I think are really important in multiples because it gets really busy really fast for the listing agent.
And when it's busy, sometimes having 50 text messages is tough. So yeah, Sandy,
Yeah.
what gets under your skin as a listing broker?
When brokers don't bother to read the agent only remarks or even look at the listing, I cannot tell you how many, and I hate to say it, they're the new brokers. It's like they don't even look at the listing. They have called and asked me questions, and I've gotten to the point where I just like they'll leave a voicemail or they'll text me, or if they call me, I will just say that information is in the listing. Have a look.
Look at the supplements.
It just sends me over the top. Like, are you kidding me? It's plain as day in the listing. Would you please just do your job and read what is in the listing? And another is when if a broker calls me and is overly arrogant. I had one who he called and he's like, hey, how's it going? And it's like the very first call. And I'm like, who am I speaking to? Well, your new best friend. And then his lender was just the same when he called me and he introduced himself and said, and I'm going to be your next on your preferred lender list, your only list. And I'm like, thinking to myself, no, you're not. And at the end of the day, no, he was not. And no, he will never go on my preferred lender list. And thankfully, we didn't end up working with that broker. And Andy, you might remember this. He was the broker who the seller was only going to pay 2%. He asked for 3. She said no. And his response to me in text was, I'm not a hooker. I don't work for free. And I about died. I'm like, and I actually did call the MLS, and it's not a violation, but I'm like, you guys should know what this person, and he actually closes a lot of transactions. That was the shame of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, either people don't care or he's BSing his way through everything. I was so glad we didn't have to work with him.
I
Right.
might use that hooker thing. That's a good one.
Yeah, I had to like look at that, I'm like, am I really reading this right?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and you know, like Kiana, I think it was Kiana who said it, we all work as a team on all sides. And
Yeah.
I keep going back to that one transaction where we ended up with like 22, we would have had 22 offers. Actually, 13 came in because the brokers who called me and said, okay, well, we can't compete, so I'm not gonna bother. But you know, all day long, they could call and ask me questions. And then I think about 2 in the afternoon, I sent an email and I said, this is where we are at. You have until 5 o'clock if you want to, and I'm not going to share anything else with anybody at this point, because I also don't want to play one against the other. So I created a cutoff time and I sent them they were all BCC'd, and I sent them the email and said, this is where we are. You have time. We had a couple who revised. The other thing that drives me nuts is brokers who do not understand how additional down works.
Right.
Because I had on this same transaction, they went, well over $1 million, but they had like a $25,000 additional down payment and they came in at list. So I'm like, so really your offer is really only as good as your additional down payment, which we were listed at 750. So your offer is really only 775 in the event it doesn't appraise any better. And she didn't get it. No matter how many times I tried to explain it to her, if it doesn't appraise, if it only appraises at what we're listed at, because that's what the comps say, your $1 million offer is no good. So she just didn't get it. And when we didn't accept her offer, she called me and I just don't understand why our offer wasn't accepted. It wasn't at the highest. I said, yes, you were the highest, but no, you were not the highest because your additional down didn't count for anything. You know, I said there were people with $200,000 worth of additional down payment. That is the offer that was chosen because it guaranteed that my seller was going to get what their total offer was. And my advice is that you figure it out. But I always tell my buyers, if we're going to do additional down and escalate, we really try to need to make those match if there's a way. And so when we got to the end, there was one broker who first offer in, great broker in the business a long time. Unfortunately, his clients weren't close, but he sent me a really sweet email and said, you know, this is how everybody should work. Transparency and working together. You were very professional. You kept everybody informed on the same information, and he thanked me. And when we can get a compliment from our colleagues, in my opinion, that's the best compliment we can get besides a referral from our clients.
Agreed. And yeah, knowing the forms and knowing that you know the forms really does go a long way. I think with listing brokers, time in the industry does not mean that you know the forms. Because we read them once, and there's a reason why. Talking what in the first or third person, there's a reason why Andy says, not all of us 20-year brokers. I've been doing it 25 years. Not all of us. But it is certainly 20-year brokers love to tell you they've been doing it for 20 years and they've been doing it wrong for 20 years. So that's why always going back to reread, because your knowledge of the form can shine through. Dear brand new brokers, I know there's a couple of like some brand new brokers on here. Every single one of us on this screen has been a brand new broker, and we did new broker things. It's just going to happen. We can't help ourselves. We've all done new broker things. What those are, is certainly vast. But I thought, that was a great point of saying, go look at the listing, read the listing, go in and look at all the forms that were put there. Like, hey, can you send me the form 17? I could, but please press a button, and there it is for you. So so what can we do? As a buyer's broker to make the listing broker, what can we do to make your life easier? How can we, what can we do for the sellers to make them happy? So, awesome. those were the questions that I have. There was a question that was sent to me through chat. If you want to send a chat message, you can do that. If you want to unmute yourself, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. But the question was, I think it's going back to the whole, are there ghosts in the attic question? So
I've been asked that. I've literally been asked that.
right. Yeah, and so the question or the comment was, I thought we were required to disclose. We are required to disclose things on Form 17. That that is absolutely the seller disclosure form. Now, so why I wanted to bring up this question is it comes down to agency law as well. Just because you are asked a question doesn't mean you need to answer it. Because also remember, we owe confidentiality to our buyers or sellers. So just because somebody asks you a question, you can say, you can say, thank you, I respectfully decline to answer that question. So it's something that needs to be disclosed. Material issues, typically meaning that this could certainly alter the value of the home. But Form 17, we are required to disclose, but you do not have to answer every question. So if if the seller's told you, I see dead people, from the sixth sense, they might. But that doesn't mean it's a disclosable issue, because in the state of Washington, you do not need to disclose haunted activity. In other states, you absolutely do need to disclose haunted activity. What those are, I'm not sure, but I know I've seen signs where it says
That'd be a fun lawsuit.
no ghost in the home. Chris, you got a question?
Well, I was just going to continue on to that. I think the question was sort of related to if it's a material fact if someone died as a result of a crime, right, rather than someone passing away at the home.
If somebody asked you, was a crime committed in the home?
No, just that, like, I think aren't you required if a murder happened at your house? Isn't that requires disclosure, does it not?
It doesn't come up in the Form 17. If there was, if it was a famous one, if there was a famous one that happened inside the house, I would say I want to say I've gone down that road before. If that happens again, get in touch with me, because because again, we owe confidentiality to our sellers. So does the fact of that happening make a material difference to the price?
Seems like it would to me.
What's that?
I said it seems like it would to me.
If you knew about it, if there's 10 people and only 2 of them know about it, and so I'm kind of creating a legal question that and don't take legal advice. We can't provide legal advice, but there's 10 people and only 2 of them know that that something big happened in this house. Does that necessarily alter the market value of the home? So an overwhelming majority. I mean, it's a great question, and if if you are ever in this situation where, like, sellers tell you, because most likely you're not going to know, you're not going to know or remember a specific house. The students, and I don't mean to make light of this, but like the students over in the University of Idaho. In that area, most people would probably know about that house, even though they tore it down. But it's like okay, it was on this site. This site's where it happened, but it's a different home. If there's ever a situation like that, get in touch with me, and we'll certainly take a look at a little bit further the legal aspect of it. Just to find out, does this materially affect the home? So it should be answered on Form 17, because Form 17 has that catch-all. Is there anything else that would affect the value of this home? It's kind of the catch-all. So I don't think most people know no specific homes, and what happens in them, unless it's like a very rare, a very rare instance.
Feels like a death, no matter how it happened as a death. You do have to disclose if it was like a meth lab or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's for, for health and safety. And
Yeah.
I believe that there's issues in Form 17, surrounding that. I mean, I think the house basically has to be gutted and tested and retested. Yeah, we should, if it's a meth lab, don't go inside the home. If you know that it is, it's not worth it. We're real estate brokers, not tour guides. One house smelled terrible, and I said, I'm not going in the home. You can search to your heart's content, but I'm not going in. We are not legally required to go inside a home. We are not legally required to go in a basement, if we don't want to. If there's ever a dangerous situation inside a home, don't do it. Don't do it. You are not legally obligated. We're real estate brokers, again, and not tour guides. Any questions, any multiple offer situations people have been in that they wanted to kind of bring to light, for maybe some thoughts from the panel?
I have a question. This is Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly.
So the one thing I hate the most is when the listing agents tell me, send me your final and best offer. And I'm just like, but I want to keep the escalation clause in there. So, I mean, as listing brokers, how should I handle that? Because I'm like, I want the escalation clause in there. I'd rather keep it in there for safety for my buyers. But I mean, I don't know how else to really tackle that
You can.
when I get that.
You can keep it in there, but you can
Okay,
tell
all right.
them, hey, if you choose my offer and you want to remove that escalation clause, like do a counter offer that says this is the price we're all agreeing on. So you can keep that escalation clause in, just explain to them, hey, this is our preference. This is what buyer wants to do. I would like to do it, but I would like to say to you, we don't have to go mutual with that escalation clause sitting on the contract. And actually, as a listing agent, I tell everybody that, like, you've got an escalation clause, we're gonna counter back to you with the price we agreed on that I showed you after I sent you the competing offer, and that will be the price, and we will remove that escalation clause. So it's actually a better way to do it anyway, Kelly.
Way better. And I
Okay.
also think that, like, when I'm the buyer's broker, and because there is an agent in my area that had some really kind of jerk verbiage in all of his listings for a long time. Highest and best only, no escalators. It was like, oh, friend, you're going to get sued so fast. But that aside, if I'm the buyer's agent and my buyer, I just call this listing agent and say, hey, look, I see your comments. I've read it. However, these guys just won't do that, so I'm because they don't get to dictate what offer you write. They're not allowed to dictate that, period. No exceptions. Buyer gets to decide what they're going to write. I just say, hey, listen, I know these buyers, and I know that they are more willing to hypothetically part with money if someone else pushes them there than to pick a number out of random freaking air. So I can send you a much stronger, higher offer with an escalator. So that's what I'm going to send you. I hope it's cool. We're not intending to be, contrarian here, or to start an argument, or to, piss you off, but this is just what the sellers are willing to do, or buyers, and I guarantee you it's going to be better. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem, send it. Like, it's about how you don't want to tell somebody to take a long walk off a short pier just because they can't demand you do that. It's all about phrasing it the right way, because again, you want to get picked, and annoying them will not help. So choose your words carefully.
When you do it that way, Kiana, do you get, because with the escalation clause, they're supposed to send you the competing offer. Do they send you that?
Yeah, I just say cross it off, red line. I mean, I don't think I've ever accepted an offer that had an escalator in it, because we cross it off and counter it every single time. And I tell them I expect that. Like, get rid of it. Just send me the other offer. As long as you're willing to just send the other offer and behave as if the escalator is in play. We don't care. And in fact, we prefer, because I have had appraisers miss escalators. I bet you can imagine how much of a party that is. So
Right.
I prefer no escalators on either side of a transaction. I was like, buyers just want to see that you've legitimately got another thing. That's it. They're willing to pay more if you're willing to show them that. I think it's worth it to your sellers. Here you go. And they're great with it. It's fine.
Never
Yeah.
had a person say, oh, don't send your offer.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
And God help them if they do, because that's a problem.
I hate highest and best.
Me too.
I think that does rub buyers the wrong way. You know, in your efforts to try and get as many offers as you can, because you never know which one is going to be on top, or maybe bump the top one to, you know, to their limit. And so, yeah, then that's great advice. And you know, when you get in touch with me, my comments are going to be, get rid as a listing broker, get rid of the escalation addendum, counter offer at the dollar amount it would be, provide them the competing offer to show, hey, yeah, what transparency, no shenanigans. You know, here you go. We want you to feel good about this process, but get rid of it so then you don't have to worry about the issues of, is this a bona fide offer? You know, so the issues that can cause the problems in the escalation addendum. So yeah, I think that's great advice. Get rid of the escalation addendum.
I always think brokers who only want highest and best is because they don't want to have to do their job
Yeah,
do
because
the
they
math.
don't understand the form
And-
half the time.
and do the math. They don't want to figure out, oh, well, what does this come out to? They just want to look at the number and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
The other
That's
thing
what
that
accept.
we haven't
That's what I-
mentioned that is annoying, and it's part of this process too, Kelly, is when people, you know, submit an offer and you have less than an hour to respond. Like, that's not even realistic.
Don't
What are
do
you
that.
doing? Even
Oh
with the
yeah, I hate
counter,
that.
you know, it's like, hey, how much time do you need? We're gonna give you this much time to respond. We're not gonna like make your hair be on fire. I just think, you know, those shenanigans are annoying and it makes it difficult on the listing agent. So just use sense on those things.
Like, can I just go back to the inspection talk just for a couple minutes? So I'm really shy about letting my buyers waive the inspection now because some of my buyers got burned last year and the year before. Actually 2 years ago, where we had to waive it. But then after the deal closed, couple things happened to each of these houses. I just felt really bad. Now I'm like really shy to do this, and I don't know how to advise my clients at this point going into the 2 buyers I'm working with, and now I'm like really gun shy about it.
Well, it should always be the same, should have been the same then as it is now, which is that I don't advise that you waive it, but this is a situation. You know, we know that there's 4 offers already on the table. You want to get your offer in. To be competitive, you might have to, but I can't advise you to do it. I don't think it's a good idea to do it personally. But ultimately it has to be their decision, and you, unless you told your buyers a couple of years ago to do it, you can't blame yourself that they chose to do it. And unfortunately they're coming up with issues. And that's what I said earlier. I hate to think about all the issues that occurred have shown up now 2 years after the fact when everybody were waiving their inspections.
Mhm.
But it's just, you just have to tell them it's not a good idea, but do you want to be competitive?
And that's what I did too. But I just felt really bad because both these things happened within a couple weeks after they closed. I'm just like, oh my Lord, sorry.
Well, the reality is, and I had this, home warranty guy told me this. He said, on average, when houses change hands, 3 things are gonna break in the first year because of different usage patterns and different ways that the homes are used. So, you know, let's keep that in the back of our mind when we have this discussion. What we're looking for is to avoid the big baddies, right? Really expensive things. So a lot of people are doing their pre-inspecting and giving you that inspection. You can go over that with your buyers and talk about the risks. You know, we don't know what's behind the walls. We've walked this house twice. If you are not comfortable in this scenario waiving, you know, we can write the offer with inspection in. Likely we won't get it. They've already told us they want it super clean. Here are the risks. But at least with a pre-inspection, you know, they've talked about the roof. We know about what's under the house, right? We know what systems are not working. And so it's like, you know, look, you're going to be spending X amount over the next however many years on this house. You have to decide, is it worth it for you to do that? These are the risks. you know, you can solve a lot of the risks if you have time to pre-inspect. It can get expensive, but you can do it. And some of it's your buyer too. I've had buyers that were like such nervous Nellies, you know, it's like, hey, why don't we pre-inspect and remove all of the mystery? Or, you know, let's go through the inspection together and talk about what normally happens in a house. But there's always going to be something. I had buyers that just closed on a house, darling, multiple offers. We were in that house 2 times. It was pre-inspected. It was clean as a whistle. It was fantastic. Did all the due diligence on that house. They move in day 1. They are attacked by ants, like teeny little foundation ants suddenly show up. And I mean, I look for that stuff because we battle them at our house all the time. And I'm like, hey, calm down. You know, it has nothing to do with the house. It has to do with the season. And right now, here's what you need to do. And here's the number you need to call. And within 3 days, problem gone. Barely cost them anything. I had extra ant stuff from when I was attacked, and we all moved on. But you don't know what you don't know in a house. And that would not have shown up in an inspection. I can guarantee you those things came out of nowhere. The house was professionally cleaned, and we had a moving cleaner clean it, and they showed up after. So things happen, you know, and you just
Welcome
gotta
home.
they happen, things happen, and it's the way it is. So
I will throw out the, you know, the legal stuff. I do want to remind you of the buyer decline policy in the policy and procedure guides. That comes from, well, you know, state law says, you know, real estate firms have to have policies and procedures. That one specifically comes from RCW 1886, that we provide reasonable skill and care. And too many times I've heard a broker say, well, I didn't include that form. Like, well, I appreciate where you're coming from, but that's not your choice. Us as brokers, we're not spending $1 million. You know, we're not spending $450,000, which is still a lot of money. So we don't make the choices of what forms get included or not. It's our duty to show them the forms. And this also comes from the attorney letters that I've seen. None specifically having to do with RSVP, knock on wood, but you know, but I've seen the letters, and the letters have stated, you did not, so they're saying my client, because they are now that attorney's client. They're no longer your client. You did not counsel my client on what could happen if I waived inspections. You didn't counsel my client on what could happen if they forfeited the earnest money within 2 days after mutual acceptance, and if they could, then come to find out they couldn't get financing. So we have that duty to provide all the forms to our clients and talk to them about it and let them know the risks of leaving them in there, but then also the risks of leaving them out. And the risks of leaving them out, they don't have the ability to do their due diligence, which means their earnest money is potentially going to be at stake. I'm not going to say they will lose their earnest money. We should never say they will lose their earnest money, because we just don't know. It's a whole legal thing that needs to be explored. But when you can prove in writing this 22T, the title contingency, it's a rarely used form. Was it Kiana and I, were you and I talking about 22VV?
Yeah.
So, 22VV, it's the insurance contingency, the insurance addendum. Go in the MLS and look it up, because, I see it may be 1 out of 1,000 transactions, but insurers are not so happy about providing insurance a whole lot more nowadays.
right.
So
I've used it twice.
What's that?
I've had to use it twice.
Yeah. You may want to go back in the MLS library of forms and look at that 22VV. It used to be a part of the policy and procedure guides. Some of y'all might remember that. And then we took it out because, like, the odds are, so fine, I'll take it out. Might need to put it back in there. So, so counsel your clients, talk to them, especially if you are giving up earnest money in advance. Listing brokers, $800,000 place, they send over $100,000 of earnest money. Sellers, you may not get to keep $100,000. You may only get to keep 40,000 of that. Statute of safe harbor. Don't look up the statute of safe harbor because that amount is in the purchase and sale agreement. That's why I read the purchase and sale agreement, go back over it to say, that 5% of the purchase price is the maximum that the seller can keep. So it's like, oh, we're getting $100,000. We'll hold the phone. If the buyer backs out, don't spend it all on some fancy record player because you might need to give some of that back. So that's the legal stuff, and in these multiple offer situations, because you're in a tough spot. You want to impress the listing broker. You want to send over a great offer. I would just say temper that with some logic, with some reality, and and buyer, if you don't want to waive these forms, then don't waive them. Kelly's like, tell them, don't waive them. Sometimes they might need to stick their hand in the lion's cage and have a get bit. It's like, again and again and again. At some point, they're like, okay, I'm sick of getting my hand bit. What do we need to do? Pre-inspect, pre-inspect, but stop going in with inspections. Sandy, did you want to add something?
Nope.
Okay, that's how you unmute. So
I had a barking dog in the background, so I had a foster pup.
Any other questions from, Chris?
Yeah, I just had a quick follow on to the pricing. I always price in my listings. I've always tried to price, pretty, I would say, on the lower end of the spectrum, just so I could entice multiple offer situations. I have a luxury listing coming up, and it's definitely not, I'm curious how you price your listings when you're looking at the $2, $3, $4 million price point. Like, do you take into account, like, okay, well, I know that houses that sit tend to, statistically get a lower price point. So I don't like to have my listings sit at all. But, the buyer pool at that sort of elevated price levels, there's just a lot fewer people. So listings take longer to sell, and the possibility of having creating multiple offer situations seems to be, there's just less people to play in that pool. So curious how people price their,
Painful lesson learned. We had a house that we built and sold years ago. Sellers, those buyers came back to us and said, hey, we want you to list it for us. So I thought, okay, I know these guys, we've got to really drill down and get a good price. And it's like in Kirkland, big house, beautiful. It's like, look, you guys need to be under 3 million. You need to be like 2.9 something. And this is why. Took them through everything. Well, we want 3.3. Well, I want to be president. But it doesn't matter what we want, because you will not sell this house. Well, let's just see. Let's just try. And I thought, okay, we're going to try. We're going to list it, and it won't sell, which we listed it and it did not sell. So then it's like we need to take it off the market. So the issue was not as much them, even though I let them talk me into it because they wanted the hallelujah price. I didn't ask the right question, which is, what will happen if you don't sell it, and how bad do you really want to sell it? Turns out they kind of didn't care. It was more of a fishing expedition, which makes me mad at myself to be that dumb that I let that happen. So now it's a new year. Maybe they'll be back to me, maybe they won't. I'm going to talk to them this week, kind of find out where they're at. But I will not overprice that listing ever again. And I think that on those bigger ones, Chris, especially if it's a resale and you're competing against new construction, you cannot be overpriced. You just can't do it. And it's hard to price them sometimes. And so, ask some broker friends of yours, hey, would you do a little ghost, broker price opinion on this for me, on this property, and kind of see if I'm in the right place on this property, because you're not going to sell it in luxury if it's overpriced. You just aren't.
I think that's the case at any price point. You know, you're not gonna sell anything at any price point if it's overpriced. Like, and it goes back to the seller, like, how do you want your experience to be? You know, different way of asking the what happens if you don't sell it? Like, how do you want this to go? What are your expectations? Do your expectations match reality? Is it real estate or is it imaginary estate? I don't have a magic wand. You know, if I did, believe me, things would go differently. Like, you just, you know, educate people, let them make their decisions.
Yeah, I never really price to generate multiple offers. I price where I know that we're going to get through appraisal, because I don't want to have to come back 2 or 3 weeks down the road and tell my sellers, oh, by the way, you're not going to get 800,000, you're only going to get 750,000, because they've already set their mind that they're going to get that higher price. So when I list a property, I list it with what is I can see with my own 2 eyes, and I can put in black and white for them to see this is what it's going to praise at. This, and this goes back to my other folks in Lake City. They saw, well, this house sold for this. And I said, I get it, but look at what is in front of you on the report that I sent you. It's not going to appraise, even if someone wants to pay $1 million, it won't appraise if someone's getting financing. So let's go in with what we know to be certain. And then that's when we start looking for the extra pieces, the additional down. And is there enough to cover that? Not 25,000 with the $1 million offer, but you know, $200,000 with the 920 offer. So I never really price with the intention of, okay, let's get in 15 offers. Cause frankly, it's a headache and it's hard work when you get 10, 15, 20 offers. So I would rather get one strong offer that I know is going to appraise, and we're going to get to the closing table and everybody's going to be happy.
Don't you think, Andy's a part of all of this is, you know, having good CMA skills and kind of knowing the secret sauce and understanding what makes, you know, a negative in a house and what's the value of that? What's the value of a view? What happens if you got a big ugly telephone pole in your front yard? What if you're under a power line? You know, there's a million things that devalue or add value to a house. And then what are those values? Frankly, I would love a panel like this of people where we could talk about that and even have a guest appraiser to come in too and help us understand, like, what's that thing worth, right? I had a recent one where it's like, I sort of have a grading system of an A, B, and C view. An A view is going to be worth more than a B view. It's going to be worth more than a C view, you know? And so what are those dollar amounts in that neighborhood and how do you figure that out? You know, what's a view worth? To the seller, it's worth $1 gazillion because that's why they bought that house. So they overestimate what the view value is. And so I think, you know, I would love to have a meeting like that.
Great thought, Bethany, write that down.
Already did.
And I think that appraisers tend to, I mean, because you see that stuff, right? Where like you have a house that is on a busy road and reality is it costs you 10% and you know it because the house has been on the market, but the appraisers, they don't tend to ding you as much on those things. And they certainly don't add that much. I think buyers are more impacted by those pros and cons than an appraiser will give credit for in a report. Has been
Same with school district.
Oh
I
yeah.
had a listing that was, you know, on the border of Newport, Issaquah, and Renton School District within a block.
Oh,
like,
they have
on
that
the edge.
problem.
And
That
we
area
were Issaquah. If it would have been Newport, would have been 100 grand more, you
Yep.
know? But the appraisers, they don't want to buy us that way. I had an appraiser tell me that. I don't want to give more value because it's in Issaquah, not in Renton. I'm like, why are you using 3 Renton comps?
Yeah.
Like, give me a break. You know, Issaquah School District, people are escalating because of it. And it would have been more in Newport. Well, we don't feel as appraisers that we should perpetuate the bias of, you know, we want good equal schooling for everybody. I'm like, me too, but this is the market. Like,
This is reality, friend. I
so
don't like it either, but it is
that's
what it
I'm
is.
saying, these are important. These underpin everything else, I feel like, to know the value and to know what's a negative and what that's worth and to know what's positive and what's that worth. Because it's not just a square footage game. I could have a lot of square footage and have the dumbest house in the world with, you know, blue tarps next to me and craziness going on in the neighborhood by the freeway. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not the same as Norkirk, you know? So I think we should do that. And
Yeah.
I think that informs like how we price our houses too.
Like that. We'll get that put together. There is, and Moxie Present, a great way to present CMA. If you have any questions about that, Bethany would be happy to go over that, just to put together the neat looking CMA that you can give to the sellers. But then ultimately it is having, being able to stand on that pillar of confidence as well, to say, I've done my study. I've looked at it. Sellers, here you go. Here's the information. What do you want to price it at? They give you a number that's too high. I'm gonna wish you the best of luck. That's too high. It's not going to sell. Go list with somebody else. And I'm gonna send you an email on this, because at some point they're gonna ask you to reduce the price. Cancel that listing, because we can tell them to cancel it because they haven't listed with that other broker yet. If they've listed with the other broker, you can't tell them to cancel it. So let them know in advance. Cancel the listing, just don't do anything else except cancel the listing, and then get back in touch with me, because I'm going to help you do things within the scope of reality. So
That's brilliant, Andy. That is completely brilliant.
there was a broken clock is right 2 times a day. So you caught one of them with the brilliance. There's also there's I call them the Jake Durando basement tapes. It was a session that we had on pricing as well. I think it's a two-part. It's a two-part session.
Or,
4-part. Excuse me.
I know.
It was a 4-part session. So so that is available. That can certainly supplement that. But I do like the idea of a panel, bringing in an appraiser as well. So you can certainly help to ask the expert on that. So
Chris, I think that you're right that the buying pool is definitely smaller in luxury. I had a listing on Clyde Hill. They wanted to list at 2.9. I said, no, it's 2.7. They said 2.9. I said, okay. But I had them agree in 30 days we were going to drop, and we dropped to 2.7 and it sold. So you can,
Sure.
set it up something like that too, if you have a seller who's just adamant about their number.
Yeah.
I think what Chris typically does is he underprices a little bit to drive more eyeballs to it. So in a luxury scenario like that, would you caution against underpricing, or do you
Yes.
see the same types of escalation?
would.
I would too. You
I
just
would
gotta know
caution-
what the value is. Yeah.
Yeah, I would caution, because you might get some people who say, what's wrong with it?
Mhm.
If it's priced so low in this area where we know that this is what prices usually are. And that's my philosophy on any listing. I price it for what I believe it to be worth based on comps. And then I tell my sellers, your house is really worth what a buyer's willing to pay. At the end of the day, we can underprice it, we can overprice it, we can price it right. And at the end of the day, it's what the market is going to bear and what a buyer is willing to pay.
Yeah. And that should be part of the panel that we do, because what's wrong with it is conversation we all have with our buyers. When a house is stigmatized, maybe just because it was a little bit overpriced, or it came back on because they went with somebody who wasn't, super committed. And then suddenly the house is, maybe there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
And so it's like, well, let's find out. Let's find out what's wrong with it.
those situations freak me out. Like, why is it still in the market? What does everybody else know that I don't know? Like, well, what am I not seeing? Like, my blinders are on. I'm like, this is a great flipping house. Why is it still here?
Maybe somebody was murdered in it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Full
really,
circle.
honestly, I've had somebody ask me on a house that was on the market for 8 days. It's like, there's nothing wrong with it. And I can guarantee you, if we don't write pretty soon, multiple people will realize there's nothing wrong with it. It's just right now it's 14 degrees out. That's what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to come out and look at anything.
Yeah, and right now, depending on the area, 14 days is kind of the sweet spot. Everybody's thinking, ooh, I'm gonna wait. There's no urgency, not as much urgency for buyers. So I'm gonna wait and see if I can get in and make a deal. So here in Gig Harbor, it's about 30-ish days. And I actually have a buyer right now who put in our offer. They didn't accept. We're holding out till 30 days. Try again.
Back again.
Yeah.
Any other questions that anybody else had? Cool. Seeing none, this has been an awesome panel. Thank you all for joining us. Ladies, thank you for being a part of this panel, providing your skill and expertise and knowledge and and forcefulness as well. Just telling people what's what is sometimes not sometimes is what we need to do. So awesome. Thank you all so very much for your time today.
Thanks, everyone.
It's
All
super
right,
fun.
thanks.
See ya.
See you guys.